kind of coming in and out.
Stepping in, it's Mooncast time. We live in medieval, on the stars we climb. Sword in hand, gotta win this fight. $1 million if you last the night. The challenge got me feeling strong. Gonna prove that I belong. It's a Game of Thrones, but it's all for real. The battle's fierce and the danger's surreal. In Mooncast, we'll rise and we'll fall, fighting for that prize. Gonna give it my all.
Hey, how are you guys? Thanks for joining us for the Mooncast online dev chat for Milestone 1. That's a mouthful. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to try and be entertaining and informative. We'll see if I succeed on either of those. So I just wanted to start with, we're Mooncast, and we are only here because of Bodhi. So Bodhi, for people who haven't really paid attention to this, is a coin. It's an ERC20 that was sold in order to make it possible for this team to build a new game after some unfortunate circumstances on a previous project. But I wanted to thank Jesse Hines specifically and the rest of the community for coming together and making it possible for us to be here and to build this new project and to have this awesome video and and interact with you guys. But I do you see that there's actually an extra night here. That is for our fallen comrade Manuel. Manuel was supposed to be here today, but he's actually busy. He's got another project right now. But in his stead, I wanted to say, smash that like button, yo, and do what you can for the algorithm. Try and get us some notoriety. Share this to your friends. Get them to start watching if you can. And lastly, before I turn it over to some of these other wonderful fellows, I know that the American presidential debate is happening in a couple of hours. I don't think we're going to take 2 hours, but I want to make sure that we wrap up in enough time to get you into the frame of mind with whatever numbing agent you require. So with that out of the way, let's do some team introductions. And to my right is Catherine. Make sure you unmute.
Yes, sorry. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm doing design work for Mooncast. My favorite game genres are survival and competitive games. I'm a little camera shy, so you won't be seeing too much of me, but I'll be here. And it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to all of you guys.
Awesome.
To my right, yeah, whatever, where, Arturo.
Hello, I'm Arturo Pulesio. I'm currently, with the help of Maxi, the art department. So I am very happy and excited to interact with you all. My favorite type of gaming is with survival, anything I can build with. And let me hand it over to Eric.
Yeah, so I'm Eric Tuvey, an engineer here on Mooncast. Love programming. Basically, I've been doing it my whole life, and MMOs are pretty awesome. And so working on this is going to be fun. That's it. Angel.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Angel Campos. I'm also an engineer, and I, feel lucky to be part of such a special project. So looking forward to, putting in sweat and tears and everything.
Excellent. Yeah, and I didn't actually introduce myself. I'm Jason Hughes. I was the kind of right-hand man technically on the previous project, and so I'm driving this one forward at present, and helping everybody corral and move in the same direction. So as far as games go, I am pretty picky, but I like esports, and oddly enough, I never play sequels, so I try and only play new things. So I'm trying to make something new here. In Mooncast, let me start with like what this project is. Mooncast is a medieval themed MMO where nearly everything is player crafted, player driven, and open commerce. And what we're trying to do here, because it's just a ridiculously short timeline to try and get something up and running and actually have it out for you guys to play, we do want it to get into your hands quickly. We're just going to build the social zone as the first zone. And the primary activity is going to be fishing, which is why you see what you see here. We have kind of a low poly aesthetic, and we're digging in with fishing, and that actually helps us test a lot of the technology and get us to the point where you can start enjoying the game quickly. Looks like we lost Angel. We'll get him back in a minute. So let's talk about what is it that makes an MMO fun. I think that there's at least a handful of things that we should like aim for if we're going to make a great game. We need to have world building. We need to have player agency. We need to have social interaction. We need to have a deep play style customization so that everybody can find their own thing. We want to have long progression ramps and a challenging rewards curve. We want to have an easy to play, hard to master sort of game design, and ideally fascinating lore, and also regular dev updates. I mean, if you don't have all of those things, you kind of end up lacking in some way or another, and that's what people should expect, right? So we're aiming for world building and player agency by allowing you to claim land. You can build buildings. You can expand those things over time and kind of customize what they do. We're going to have social interaction. Initially, it'll probably just be text bubbles popping up, but later we'll have proximity chat. We want to have deep play style customization where we have a pretty deep world sim that we're planning to do, pretty similar to the project we had last time. And that has things like deep encumbrance, and we're going to have things like sound, like noisy versus quiet gear, and monsters that pay attention to those kinds of things, light and dark, things that are familiar to you if you've been watching us for a while. We're going to have a long progression and challenging rewards curve, meaning we're going to have real world scarcity and incredibly deep crafting system that's full of player expression. And we want to have the easy to play, hard to master is we want it possible for a person to play solo, but you really should find a team. And that'll make the game not just easier, but you'll be more effective. And then there's also fascinating lore. We have an amazing backstory that I think pieces of it will start leaking over time. And I think that some of that will be told through collectibles. But I look forward to having a future conversation where we describe some of the lore. And then regular dev updates is on us, and it's on you guys too. This is a community-driven project, so ideally, if we're doing a good job, you'll help support us in the future. So, of the things that I think are worth pointing out, we have made some important design decisions. We're going to do the low poly appearance. It allows for a lot of customization, but not in the way that most games do it. We're doing it in a slightly different way. Arturo likes to call it G.I. Joe. But it's articulated, but it's not using the more complicated skinning system. But it means that we have more swappability, and we're also using one skeleton for our characters and for our enemies. But that's for now. Like, we may change that in the future, but for now we can move really fast if we just have one skeleton. But what we also get is the ability to focus on other things like deep systemic gameplay, where the materials have meaning and the properties of the materials carry through everything you do with them. So, for example, if you build something out of wood, it's going to have the properties of wood. If you build something out of steel, it'll have properties of steel. Maybe you can have things that have magical properties, and depending on how you use it, you get the different but similar magical properties that carry through. So we'll talk about that when we get around to crafting. Players also have mastery, and the mastery, what that means literally is the reduction of uncertainty. So reduction of uncertainty, like if you hand a really great weapon to somebody, they can use it, but they're going to be very wild in how they can use it. Whereas somebody who's skilled with it are going to be much more, I would say, efficient, but also they're going to be more reliable with it. So mastery is how you get better at something, and it's not that you can't use it before that. There's no hard gates really, but it may not. You can hand a really cool weapon or great armor to somebody, and it's just they're not that good with it. Your equipment is more or less how you play. And because of weight and because of noise and damage types and damage resistances, we want it to be so that an item that you might find early in the game still is valid for a playstyle. It may not be the playstyle you pick, but even an entry-level weapon or item may be the right choice for certain situations. So we don't have to have just an unlimited, huge ramp of content that we have to produce. Instead, we have to make it possible for you to produce it, and you can customize it for how you need it, which I think is interesting. It's fascinating. You could take the same idea of like, this is a dagger, and you can make it out of wood, and it'll be way lighter and maybe faster than one that you make out of gold. It may not be as expensive, but you may not want to use a gold dagger because it's too heavy, or maybe it clinks too loud or something like that. And then basically, like I said, players can do almost everything solo, but poorly. And to succeed, you really want to work together in groups. You want to be organized. You want to specialize, and then to shortcut some of that. You can actually use commerce and work with people that aren't necessarily good friends of yours, but you find that they have something of value, and by having something of value, you can trade things. And that kind of brings me to the next big set of pillars is how blockchainy is this? And I think that's a good question. What I would say is that Web 2 players who are not interested in a blockchain don't need to know about it. If you force people through that, it's just a painful ramp, right? Getting people over those hurdles of getting a wallet and understanding what NFTs are and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's just too much. Actually, a lot of times it's too much. So what we want to do is actually not make a game about the blockchain, but make a game and support the blockchain. So pretty much everything in the game can be exported to or imported from the blockchain. And the place you do that is at a chain vault in town. So if you're a Web 2 player, you log into the game, you never even think about it. You just wander around, do the things you do. If you never go to the chain vault, you've never experienced the blockchain. And that's fine. It's totally fine. If you're a blockchain enthusiast and you'd like to take things in and take things out, maybe take it to OpenSea or some other place, you can totally do that. Take any item, go over there, throw it through the chain vault. You pay your gas fee, it exports, and then you now have your item and you can do whatever you want with it. You could find other things, and then bring them back in at the same place. And now you have it in your inventory. So the way that works is you don't put things on the blockchain and they play there. Instead, you put things on the blockchain and they're no longer in the game. So that simplifies a lot of things. And we'll talk about like how all this stuff kind of works in a minute, but starting with that as a core concept, having Web 2 players that can come in and play the game and support the ecosystem on equal footing with people who are into blockchain solves a lot of problems, and it allows us to scale a lot higher and a lot farther. And I don't think that there's any harm in being a blockchain person versus Web 2 person. It just works. It's the game. Play the game. And if you want to do more things on blockchain, then awesome. And we want to totally facilitate that. So part of also what we're in terms of blockchain, there's more to it than just storing items. Some of it is about decentralization, and we have architected Mooncast servers so that there's a core that is the cluster, and the cluster is the thing that is what we run. And we'll probably have several of those throughout the world eventually. Initially, it's just one for ease of maintenance. but we'll have them close to people so that you can have low latency, high performing, fun combat. And that's something that we couldn't do previously for various reasons. But in this project, we're going to have one in North America. We'll probably have one in Asia. We'll probably have one in Australia, maybe one in South America and Europe. And by doing that, each of those cluster nodes, those are the things that knows where all of the zones are, but we don't have to necessarily run those. The zones can be run external from the core of where the cluster is. So what that means is we have a very pluggable architecture, and it's possible for us to use Amazon as our back, our server stack, or we might actually use Google Cloud, or we might actually use some decentralized physical infrastructure, which we're very excited about. I'm not going to talk about. I don't want to steal their thunder, but there's at least one project that we're keeping our eyes on because we'd love to be an early adopter of that. And by helping them, they're helping us, and there's a symbiosis there. So games working decentralized is, I think, in everyone's best interest. And longer term, I think there's some symbiosis there that I think we will benefit from, especially being early, and we are. Let's see. So the other thing, two things. We are a blockchain game, and we are going to have an ERC20, which is probably going to be called Cast, and that's going to be used as in-game gold. When it's in the game, obviously it's not on the blockchain anymore. Like I said, anything that you bring into the game is a game item, and so you can bring Cast into the game and use it. And if you find it in the game, it's already there. If you bring it into the game, it just increments your counter. So you can play with it there, and if you want to ever take some out, you can take it out. So it's an ERC20, but it's sort of like it's bridging into the game. That is very convenient for us, and we use that in a very specific way I'm not going to describe right now, but it is very intricately tied to how our spawning system works. And our spawning system has underpinnings for our economy, and it's very early for us to describe, but suffice it to say that the token has value, and we can control exactly how much that value is, and it will help support a floor price for all items in the game, which I have not heard another game able to do. So that's huge. The secondary currency, though, and we can actually add as many currencies as we want, but the one that we know we want in the game is Bodhi. Bodhi as a secondary currency is not just something that we're going to support and have as a counter, but we're also planning on having some things in the game that you can buy with Bodhi that can only be bought with Bodhi, which creates utility and is a big thank you to the community. So I'm not going to go into detail about that because we haven't built it yet, and I'm not going to make promises, but that's the plan. And we're super excited to be here where we are, where we can show you what we've done. And let's do a quick recap of the timeline of the development of Mooncast really quick. Is that our first day of work was May 16th. Today is June 27th. That's 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, we managed to get a ridiculous amount of great stuff done. And this is the hardest part of the project, where you have to lay the groundwork. And I think we're way ahead of where I thought we'd be. So let me describe briefly the boring stuff I had to do. So part of the things that we have to do is make it possible for a person to log in, and we know who they are. So there's a technology called OAuth 2, and it's basically when you go someplace and it's like, log in with Google, log in with Facebook, log in with Discord or whatever. That's OAuth 2. So we have that working now, and I will show you really quickly. Here's a video. Here we are in the init scene. Loads up, and then it transitions to the login scene. Then I click login, and it pulls up. I don't know if you can see this or not. It pulls up the login page, and then it takes me back to the game, and it says successful login. So that's pretty much the big deal. So successful login, that's not a very exciting moment, but trust me, it was a lot of work. And what that also means is we have a successful login. That means we have a state management system running in the client. That means we're transitioning between different states. That means we are sending messages to the server, our server, and back again. And the server is saying, do I actually trust I know who you are? Google says you're that person. So I check that with public keys that they've published, and everything is dynamically correct. And so that's a big step in the right direction. Beyond that, we also have basic storage systems set up for our database. We have, like I said, client server messages flowing. We have some process monitoring and dashboards. And there's a bunch of invisible, boring work that I can't even describe to you in a way that you're going to care about. Like I'll show you. This is the kind of boring work that I had to do. Yeah. So if you look, I have the infrastructure manual actually has a way for us to go through and, like, you just double click run all, and now it has all the infrastructure necessary. Oops, that's not the right thing. Has all the infrastructure necessary for running all of the server processes inside of Visual Studio, and it'll connect all those things. And then there's a stop all and also a delete all data. So basically, if you have a user account or you've played for a little while, you delete all data and it gets rid of everything. Similar but different is that there's a build server in local. Local means everything runs inside of Docker. There's a build server bat, which now actually, well, it's not very exciting, but it figures out how to build the whole server into a Docker bundle. And then there's a run all, which will set everything up, including Fusion auth and all that stuff. And then there's a stop all and a delete all data. So that's the kind of boring stuff that I have to do, unfortunately. More exciting is this week, in between building videos for this, I managed to get the internal servers working. So when we're running, most of the time, we don't want to actually force people to go through that whole that jiggery pokery stuff where you got to double click all this stuff. Instead, you just hit play in Unity, and the whole server stack runs inside of Unity, which is kind of magical. Most MMOs are just really, really hard for people to run locally at all. And the way that we did it in the previous project and the way we're doing it again is building out a virtualized networking system so that people who are completely non-technical can go in, launch it by just hitting play, and everything works as if it were this more complicated system. We have simulated some parts of it, but most of it's exactly what you expect. So the bugs we find there are the same bugs we would find in a production build. So that's huge.
What's in the art department? Thank you.
Exactly. Eric, let me pass it over to you.
Sure. So one of the things that we really wanted to nail early on is understanding how blockchain was going to interact with our game. And we've gone through lots of discussion about options and how we want to store things and conceptual things. And so what I've been working on is kind of prototyping some ideas and getting kind of blockchain up and running locally so that we can create basically our own Mooncast NFTs and how do they interact with our game. So yeah, I've been working on basically prototyping that tech. Go ahead and run the video, Jason. Hey guys, I'm here to talk about blockchain integration in Mooncast. One of the goals that we have in the game is we want players to be able to play without worrying about the blockchain. However, there's a special place in the game where you can go to manage your interactions between your game inventory and the blockchain. So what could that look like? I have a quick demo here. I'm going to go ahead and log in to the game. And imagine this is my game inventory. Inventory system is still in development. But this is a blockchain area here in the screen that you'll see. So let me go ahead and connect to the chain. I'm going to use a connect button, and it pops up in a QR code for MetaMask to scan. I'm using my mobile phone right now to connect to the game. And now I've connected. Here's my wallet address, and this is the chain I'm on, 1337. This is the network, the local blockchain that I'm using for testing. I have 1,000 ETH in this account. I have some Mooncast NFTs that have been given to me. And let's say I have nothing in my game inventory, and I want to be able to transfer some of those things into the game. So let's transfer over a fishing pole. Here's a transaction on the blockchain where that NFT was burned and moved to my game inventory. I'm going to refresh my NFTs, and it's gone. Now I need some bait. So let me go ahead and import my bait. And now it's in my game inventory. Another transaction on the chain. And refresh. Now let's say I want to turn that bait and get it back on the chain as an NFT. I go ahead and export that. Get another transaction. Refresh my NFTs. Let me do one more time. Sometimes it takes a while for the blockchain. And now my bait is here. So I'm going to also show you how I can connect to the base network where we have our Bodhi. And I can view my Bodhi balance right there. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. What we've done so far is we've integrated MetaMask SDK into our game client. We're running a test blockchain environment. We've created our own Mooncast contracts. We have a client and server coordinating, moving assets from the blockchain back and forth in our game inventory. We have a server listing for Mooncast blockchain events, tracking updates. And then one of the next steps is to integrate IPFS so that we can take our game assets persistent state and create NFTs of our items. So for example, if they're damaged and they get exported, they stay damaged. And when they're imported in a damaged state, you now have something you need to repair in the game. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, the progress on some of the NFT integration we have. Hopefully there's something cool that you've seen, and I will talk with you guys later. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, so, and I am currently still working on IPFS support and making pretty good progress there. So things are going pretty quick. I think I'll turn things back over to Jason.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out is that what's interesting about the way that we connect is that we're not running in a browser; it's a full desktop app, and so the QR code is actually you doing basically 2FA by using your phone to connect, and it then connects through the internet and does all this magic work. But basically, no one can fake it, right? I mean, when someone was trying to connect, I saw one of the chat comments is like, someone's scanning the QR code. That'd be great, but you're not going to be able to connect to his client right now. But I think it's funny though, because we were Eric and I were testing this while he was logging in, and he had he was screen sharing, and I pointed my phone, and I logged in using my MetaMask to his client. So it actually works over the internet. It works over video and everything else. So whoever it is who binds their wallet, it is now bound while you're playing that session, or at least for the moment. So yeah, be careful. Be careful with letting them have your QR code while you're logging in, or maybe spread that around and see who donates good stuff to you. Cool. Angel, you're up.
Yeah, hi guys. So since the inception of this project, I've been really heads down on getting our character control down as tightly as possible, because that's going to be your main interaction with the world, right? It's how you drive your character around. So we want to make sure that feels solid responsive, and makes sense for the world that we're playing in. So we don't want to go too arcadey. I mean, we also don't want to go hyper realistic either. We want to land somewhere in the middle that makes sense with our low poly aesthetic and MMO, MMO background. So, a lot of that time has just spent kind of researching, like, okay, what are the best tools to accomplish this? And we are leaning on a technology called motion matching to get that done, which is a mixture of using mocap and letting that do its natural fluid movements, and then adding our own control on top of that, and then somehow being able to combine the two so that our mocap animation doesn't drift too far from where you want it to be. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get that to happen. So if you ever play a game that's got really fluid motion, that's very responsive, a lot of work went into that. And I can just tell you from scratching the surface right now that, yeah, somebody put a lot of hours into that. So I think we have a few videos queued up that we can demonstrate some progress on. So let's go ahead and play that first one.
All right.
All right, let's talk character controllers. You guys might be familiar with this video where we're moving a placeholder character around in our world using motion matching. Well, to get to this point involved a lot of iteration and discovery. Our process to get here used to look something like this, where we would take raw mocap data, feed that into Maya, and then export that out as an animation FBX file. And then we would have to import that file into Blender and run some manual cleanup steps like fixing the ground plane because that got lost in translation. And then also realigning the axes so that forward is the same forward that we expect coming from the mocap take. And all this had to be done because Maya didn't have a straightforward way of exporting a BVH file directly from here. So we used Blender as sort of a middleman to get that file format. And then we would take that file, put it into Unity, set up a motion matching controller, press play, and then see if the output looked correct and if we could drive the character around seamlessly. But oftentimes that wasn't the case, so we'd have to start all the way from the beginning and tweak some data and then run the whole process again. Well, that quickly became very cumbersome, and I switched gears to figure out how to cut that down as much as possible. And I was happy to find this plugin that lets us export BVH from directly from Maya and into Unity, cutting the process down to basically these steps. So we could just go tweak Maya and export BVH and go into Unity and iterate a lot faster. Since this was open source, I could tweak the code to our needs. And then this helped us speed things up quite a bit. So as time went on, we got from here and to here, where we now can apply the mocap in Maya to the character model that we want to use in game, and finally bring that into Unity and drive them around. So as you can see, we now have a working character controller straight out of Maya with usable mocap data. So here we are, driving him around, and yeah, just take a moment to feast your eyes on that. A little bit of a walk here, slow pace, and then we go into a jog or a straight up sprint. Trying to get him into a jog. Let's see if we can get that going. Come on, buddy. Well, I guess that jog's not going to happen. I have to tweak some of the sensitivity values to get him to jog, but as you can see, he's looking pretty nice and fluid. And if you see some frame hitches, that's probably because I'm running Blender, Maya, and OBS and all this other stuff at the same time. But that's where we're at with the character controller.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've got another video here that's it's me talking over it, unfortunately, instead of Angel, but he did all this work, and to set the stage for it, it's two completely different motion matching libraries running with the same joystick, and you can see both of them and how they work. And I'll just go ahead and hit play because it's better to look at than listen to me talk. Looking at both of them, they look pretty different from each other. Like, I mean, if you look at MXM, clearly he's got some weird tilt to him, and when you face north or south, if you look at JLPM, his arms are out at a strange angle. So both of them have some issues. I'm not sure if that's just bind pose differences or something else. But from what I'm seeing, the MXM one doesn't look as good, and it's probably tunable. But the smoothness of the JLPM one just looks different. I mean, maybe they're both very tunable. The main thing that I was hoping we'd get out of the JLPM one is that we might be able to run this on the server and know where the joints are for each of the characters as they're moving around. And then the client would literally just be interpolating all the creatures all the time. So the server would have a higher load, but there'd be a little bit more networking data, and the client would be much cheaper. So it wouldn't run any of this except for your local characters. I don't know if we can do that with MXM. We might be able to. I mean, it uses a bunch of burst-related code and things like that, so I don't know. It's possible we use one for the server and the other for the client, but that seems like the worst of both worlds.
So for those of us that don't speak in Aramaic, the dots you see in front of the character are helping it predict what's coming up, which for us in the art department helps so much, because for the longest time, characters are only reacting to that very second when it says turn to the left, or if there is something tagged as you will start leaning upwards, but there's no need for that with this. That trail of dots in front of you are telling it to DJ the proper animation to decelerate or to start going upward. Let's say you get that nice footwork that almost makes you want to have like a soccer game, because it can shift weight and it can do acceleration and deceleration in a very natural way. Makes you feel grounded in the undulations of the terrain. So even though it's a lo-fi aesthetic, it increases the amount of immersion tremendously.
Yeah, I'd say so. And just from what we've been able to get in the game so far, and just prove out, the tech has just been like, I don't know, like every time I see a little bit of progress, even though it's like say 1%, it still brings a smile to my face because I'm like, oh, people are gonna love this.
You want to talk over the turn in place video? I'm going to cue that up.
Sure. Yeah, I can explain what's going on there. So here is a small example of that 1% change where we didn't have turn in place animations before. So this is me just flicking the controller in different directions, and you can see the movements are kind of exaggerated. He's turning way too much. He's moving way too much to go there. So I asked our animator Maxi to give me some turn in place animations that would help with this particular transition. And we're going to get the after here to see how that really helps. Just raw mocap data of turnarounds, and now every time I flick the controller, it's very believable, very natural turns. So yeah, just seeing that, I was like, yes.
It looks fantastic. That's actually really hard to do with a typical animation state controller, because it always wants to kind of move the character in the direction, but if you just flick the joystick, it's like, oh, you're going really fast and then you're not moving at all. That's just really difficult to do normally. So that turned out really well.
Cool. So I'm just excited to see what comes next. We'll keep you guys posted.
Awesome.
After fishing, we do rugby.
What have you been up to, Catherine?
Yes. So as a designer, much of my work has been spreadsheets of items and docs detailing stuff like the harvesting system or the crafting system, which is less interesting to look at and still subject to change. But I've got a video showing the more visual side, so let's go ahead and play that. Hello, these are explorations and designs, so just remember nothing is final. Here we have the crafting system. We're aiming for a deep crafting system where players have the freedom to choose their components, and the components' properties directly influence the outcoming item. See here by me making a wooden blade versus an iron blade. Same recipe, different item. Moving on, this was an exploration in magic to think about how one spell charge, in this case Fireball, could be used in combination with different magical focuses, Wand, Grimoire, Staff, to get a different effect, which I think is pretty dang cool. And here is the first inventory mock-up. This past its purpose was to think about how many equipable slots there should be, and that was a very long and wonderful conversation. Our artist Maxie did an incredible job redesigning it, so keep an eye out for that. Lastly, of the cool stuff that I could show off, we have a exploration on player views. So how many tiles should a player see at once? So we've got the biggest, medium, and then the smallest, somewhere in there. And yeah, we like the largest size here, and we might even go bigger once the real map is ready and not just whatever this is. Thank you very much. Yeah, so if we haven't said it, we are planning on doing the fishing game top-down, at least for now. And it's super exciting. And I've actually narrowed my scope down from crafting and such to just the fishing mini games, the fish themselves, what kind of cool other things you might find in the ocean, like, boots. And of course the mini game, because why would you fish if you didn't get to play mini game? So let's go ahead and look at the types of mini games that we could possibly have. I'm back again to show off some of the fishing mini games we're considering. So first of all, you'd cast your rod, and then the easiest mini game is just ready, set, pull. So you would follow a quick time event, and hopefully you'd get the fish, or you won't. All of them will require you to do the little quick time event to start the mini game. The next mini game we're going to look at is Wild Bobber. So the bobber is going to knock back and forth, and you're going to move your yellow bar to hopefully catch the bobber and the fish. The next mini game is the tension mini game, where you pull up the fish, increasing your string's tension, but you don't want to snap your rod, so sometimes you'll have to let go a little bit. The last is going to be either quick time or button mash event based on left and right clicks of your mouse. And at the end of all of these, hopefully you've caught a fish. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's plenty more mini games out there, but those are the ones that we're considering. And there's still a lot of ground to cover before we get to implementing gameplay or mini games. But as you've seen, we're cooking through it. We have incredible engineers, incredible artists, so I'm super hopeful that we'll have something fun.
Yeah, for sure. Maxie actually can't be here right now, but he did have a couple of pre-recorded videos that I want to go ahead and throw up here. He's doing animation, but he's also helping out on UI and just generally speaking, awesome. So let me throw the UI up here.
Hello guys, so I'm going to be showing a little bit of what I've been working on here. So this is based off of Catherine's first attempt to the inventory, and I took a stab at this in Photoshop, animated it a little bit so you can see the functionality a bit. So there you go, on top of the thing, shows you the stats. You can grab something and add additional things to it. But yeah, that's just a little quick overview of how it would work. Very basic, but yeah, first stab. Then I also took a stab at another of the menus. And
so Maxie also did a whole bunch of other stuff with animation. Obviously, he spends most of his time doing that. But there was a question and comment about the guy being bald. I don't think that there's a reason why we shouldn't all play with bald characters. I'm kidding. So There was an early character that was Arturo's first guy, throwing them together quickly and trying to get something that was animatable that we could look at. But we have updated characters, and so we're going to show some of that right now with Maxie's animations. Here we go.
So here we have our character designed by Arturo. I don't think this is the last version just yet. This is just the first pass, but proportion-wise, I think is the closest thing. So we can work with this, and we can see that we have some basic animations. We have an idle. You know, see very rough stages. This is first pass of bringing mocap in and starting to clean things up a bit. Some deaths. So a lot of these are very like just retarget to the character, and what I'm doing is going one by one and just adding a bit to it, you know, tweaking timing, poses, and making sure, you know, mechanically they work correctly. Clearly this one is not even grabbing the weapon properly and so on, but it's good for us to have this as early as possible so we can test it in game. We have some harvesting things, yeah, cool stuff. And then there's some more here. Let's see. Then we can move on to, this is our walk for motion matching. You know, this follows a pattern, and I'm working closely with Angel to get this working with the system we're testing right now. It's looking promising. We just, you know, polishing up some of the corners there that are a bit problematic, but as soon as we get that solved, I think this is gonna look great in the game. So yeah, basically we have this character, which is basically me walking around in a mocap suit. And yeah, all the turns and all that jazz. Then we have sprint as well. It's kind of like weird to see how I run. Looks kind of lame, but I guess that's how I move. So follow the same pattern, just at different speeds. And with motion matching, this is gonna allow us to have more realistic motion. Then we have a jog. Same deal with the same patterns, turns, starts and stops, and just speeding through this. And lastly here, oops, we have some fishing animation, also super rough, but here we go. Idle, and then catch something. Ooh.
Maxie is so humble. It's not super rough. That looks amazing. All right, Arturo. Last but not least, I saved the best for last. Oh, your mic is off. Hang on. There we go.
Saw some comments about him needing more booty. We can do a Bodie for booty drive.
All right. Well, let me see if I can find your video. You want to lead into it?
So, I guess what we did is, it's all pretty much said in the video, so I don't want to preempt it with the same content.
All right. I'll just go ahead and start it up then.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Arturo here from the art department. Not long ago, Jason reached out to me with some images he'd been playing with to kickstart the visual development for Outcast. The goal is to create an aesthetic that's fun, gritty, and approachable. We began to talk about proportions, which can be measured by how many heads tall a character is. Some games go for 3 or 4 heads tall for adults, which trend to the hyper-stylized or childlike. Others go for utopian proportions, which go past superhero at around 9 heads tall. For our goals, we'll begin explorations at 5 heads tall. lighthearted and not so thin at a distance so you can see your gear better. We took some rapid iteration time using the tools of our day, and we got far in making decisions in a short time. We have a goal of embracing the low polygon look, so we need to get a sense of how cartoony, how intricate, how sexy, how abstract, if it's high fantasy. And we landed on something that serves our purpose as well, a mix of sturdy MMO fantasy that's big on modularity. It can go delicate on some species and tough on others, which allows for expression while still keeping a shareable kit. We'll start with a human as our root so we can grow from there. Our first 3D character was reinterpreted from one of the images to hit our 5 head ideal. It was made to be articulated rigidly, like the old G.I. Joes, which gives us some early benefits with tech exploration and makes modularity easier. Then we tried them out in Engine to gauge how the hard edge stylization is carrying through. It's good to see that they feel different with only a head change and some slight scaling. Now, you've all heard that we're starting with a fishing game, so we're exploring how to expand this style to cover the fish and the gear of the world too. The goal for gear is that it'll take advantage of the low polygon breaks in the models to tag different materials. More advanced things will be made of more types of materials, and they'll have world sim behaviors that affect gameplay. Something that's made out of metal will behave like metal, something that's made out of wood will behave like wood. Similarly, we had to plan how all this carries over to the environment. The scale of the detail, how we can introduce areas of complexity and of simplicity. The characters need to fit well in a world that carries the same density of detail. We want to spark a sense of wonder and an ache as you look upward and want to explore different shelves of content. All this while leaving an open door to explore different types of nature without being too tied to reality. We've prototyped some shapes that allow us to explore this, and we're starting to experiment on what we'll consider important, what works best for our gameplay, and our visual needs. We hope you enjoyed this early prototype update. We'll keep you up to date as we try a taste of different versions before we nail anything down.
Awesome.
There
That
you
stuff
go.
looks amazing.
Something that I really like about the thought of the different materials is that anything that is made of 5 materials would have the properties of all those. So it's not just color differences. And I can imagine a world where crafting has particular boosts and uh, inconveniences based on what you choose to craft with. So that makes me happy.
Very much so. Yeah. I want to get into the crafting design, but not on this video. I think it'll be pretty exciting whenever people realize what we have planned. So but it'll look really cool to see people carrying the same shape but completely different content, and it won't necessarily be the same item just because a level 1 guy crafted it. It may not look the same as somebody who's a level 100. So there's a lot of depth and complexity there that I am really excited about, and it's going to make your character look amazing. So all good stuff. So what's next? Quickly to wrap up, we're almost at an hour. The things that we're working on right now, I mean, engineering wise, I'm working on adding accounts and characters and inventory and equipment structures. And there's a ton of work being done on character controller so you can move around the world. We're going to probably do a 3D version of it, and we may just fix the camera to be a 2D. We're not sure yet, but we're not going to overpromise. I want to make sure that what we deliver is something we're confident in. There's an interaction system that we need to build so that you can actually do like interacting with buildings and buying and selling things and turning in your fish. And if we can do a tournament system for fishing, then we'll do that. And then there's a ton of environment art and an auto atlasing system for the materials so that we can actually render pretty quickly. But we're not focused on performance right now. It's mostly about getting something up and running and see how quickly we can get something that we feel is a good enough product that we can put out into people's hands. Do you guys, anybody else have anything to add? Just unmute yourself and go for it. Going once, going twice. All right, so there's some questions. 8-Bit Tendy says when. Of course you said when. When is as soon as we can. Realistically, I think that we have to have something out by October. I think we'll probably have something at least as an initial playable before that. I don't know exactly when, but sooner than later. I think October that's the last possible date. So I think that we can honestly sign up for at least then, but expect it before that. And then Family Man asks, are you planning on a vault bank feature for storing items? And that's related to like picking up stuff that you can't carry right now. No, not in the sense that you're walking around and you've got the gear you want and you want to pick up something new and it doesn't fit in your inventory, so it goes somewhere else. The inventory system is based off of encumbrance, and it's important that the things you carry slow you down because you're too heavy. So you have to decide, do you want to wear the really heavy, really durable armor, or do you want to wear leather because you can carry more stuff? And you can actually move faster in leather because it's lighter. Or maybe actually plate mail might be lighter because plate mail is very thin and also very durable. So those are the kinds of things that you have to make decisions about. Not every item is better because its stats are higher. There's going to be multiple axes for every item, and the different stats are probably going to make it better for some purposes than others. So picking up more stuff means you may actually become slower because you're carrying more weight.
That makes me really happy because it keeps things from becoming irrelevant.
Exactly. So the lightweight things that are early in the game may actually be the best thing for you to run around in kind of easier zones. So that's kind of the direction we're going right now. I doubt we'll make a huge right turn from there, but that's what I have in mind. So a deep simulation is important, and I think what you want is to have a big enough group with you that you can carry things back. Or maybe long time from now, we could have things like horse-drawn carts or things like that, where you could put things into and then jump in the cart and steer it home or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going to promise that. Oh, you're still here. Hey, so I wanted to reward you all for hanging out for an entire hour with us. This has been super exciting for us, and I'm thrilled that we got to do this much of the project, and we're going to continue charging forward to the rest of it. I'm going to reward you all, or punish you, depending on how you like it, with a final video before we sign off. So thanks very much, everybody, and enjoy the last couple minutes of the stream.
We're burning bright beneath fluorescent skies, crunching lines of code, no breaks, no goodbyes. We've got the passion, we've got the dream, but every bug feels like a scream. Long nights and pizza kind of blur, a laugh, a curse, our lines occur. And we ain't got no time to breathe fresh air. 'Cause I understand we've been coding all the land just to build a world that's stunning. The bug list grows like a jungle vine that knows where the nights turn into mornings. I understand we've been coding all the land just to build a world that's stunning. Logins are working, characters are walking, polygon dreams and complexities. Blockchain items move, smooth as honey. There's still so far to go. It's kind of funny. Code warriors, keyboards, and caffeine, mapping out worlds where no one's been. The scope expands with every sprint, yet the backlog's still an endless hint of late nights, friends and foes, testing all our roles to craft the most dynamic fishing hole.